The question is being morally right wise? In this case, she's gone to Taiwan to show her support for Taiwan's democracy and for its right to run itself. But the Chinese see that as a sign the Americans are going to recognize it as an independent country, and that for the Chinese is a tripwire. We have to ask, what is important? We want to keep Taiwan free, running their own lives. Do we want to provoke a conflict? Secondly, we also want to protect those sea lanes and all the trade routes. And those two could be drawn into a conflict with China.
So you see this as an unnecessary act of provocation, better than let sleeping dogs lie?
Yeah, let sleeping dogs lie. I don't like to say that I want to over-criticize her, because she has been standing up. There are all sorts of huge business interest lobbying groups in Washington, Bill Clinton and the Bushes and so on, all said China is going to become just like us if only we let it into the World Trade Organization.
Which we did in 2001.
Yeah.
Yes.
If only we let its economy spread, if we let it develop its subsidiaries everywhere and we buy into its technology, then somehow or other magically they will be transmuted into being just like us. Whereas what we've seen repeatedly is Chinese communists, from the moment they came to power to the present day, whenever they've had to choose between profit and power, they've chosen to keep hold of power, even if it costs them a lot in the short term, because then ultimately they can profit from the control that they get.
Well, we can't just blame the Americans for getting this wrong, because after all, you know, the 2010 government of George Osborne and David Cameron thought this was our great future.
No, this was a great consensus across the West. And all wise people said, surely they'll see it's in their interest to become like us. But in fact, they said, these people are suckers to a degree. They have allowed the Western world, the Americans and the Europeans and us, to be tied into all sorts of supply chains that we saw with the COVID crisis. Yeah. Suddenly, if things go wrong in relations with China, these things can be snarled up, or even they can, as it were, sanction us by changes to the supply practice.
Now, we've got, as I mentioned, tanks on beaches, amphibious craft, we've got aeroplanes, we've got naval exercises, live firing, things that haven't happened as close as that to Taiwan for years and years and years. You wrote in the Mail today, Daily Mail today, that the 1914 spark of the assassination in Sarajevo sparked a First World War that nobody could see coming. How dangerous is this?
Well, this is very dangerous, partly because the Chinese have announced they're going to have naval live fire exercises inside the 12-mile limit of Taiwan. So are the Taiwanese going to, in a sense, retreat, take their border, such as it is, further and closer to their own island, or will they try to stop that or do something to say that this is not permitted? So the trigger event could happen in the next few days. This is where the Chinese have never got this close to the island of Taiwan.
How scared should people be of China? Because my impression, Mark, is that most people still think China is this insular, albeit huge, but insular country, and they sell us a lot of products, and people don't realise how much they've militarised and their colonialist expansion in Africa and places like that.
Well, certainly their military power, their naval power has grown enormously. And also, as you say, their economic influence, their technological influence, their reach into all sorts of places is there. And we can see, say, with the war between Russia and Ukraine too, many African states, many other Asian states say, we don't want to offend the Chinese. You in the West may be upset about this, but it's a long way from us. And these people are building roads, railways, pipelines, building factories. We depend upon them. And so in a sense, the Chinese have mastered the art of buying friends. Whether they will stay bought, we don't know. But at the moment, when push has come to shove, a lot of people have said, whatever happens, I don't want to offend the Chinese. And that's going to cause us problems, because we've always assumed that ultimately the weight of the West was so great that in any real big crisis, most people will gravitate to us. Well, maybe now the weight of the world is shifting.